In the winter of 1148, a clandestine marriage in southern France triggered a chain of events later erased from official records. The union involved a nobleman of uncertain lineage and a woman tied by blood to ruling Capetian and Plantagenet houses. No bans were published, no diocesan approval sought. The ceremony occurred in secrecy during post-Crusade political instability. Within weeks, the estate well turned black, livestock sickened, and household knights exhibited symptoms resembling spiritual leprosy. A stillbirth followed its condition so disturbing the midwife refused to describe it in later confession records. Local clergy interpreted these as signs of divine disfavor, possibly due to consanguinity within forbidden degrees of kinship. The Bishop of Narbonne, fearing contagion of spiritual corruption, dispatched an investigator to assess the marriage's validity. The emissary discovered charms of non-Christian origin in the bridal chamber yew berries, knotted threads, and occult glyphs. He reported his findings to Rome via ciphered correspondence, warning of potential heretical influence in a noble household. Pope Eugene III, already managing fallout from the failed Second Crusade, authorized a secret ecclesiastical tribunal. This tribunal, operating outside public canon law, convened in the crypt of the Abbey of Saint-Guilhem-le-Désert. Cardinal Alberic of Ostia presided, having previously led inquisitions against simony and incest in Languedoc. Witnesses included a defrocked priest who claimed coercion, a wet nurse citing foster kinship, and a monk alleging pagan rites. A dying knight testified the groom had declared, "Let ruin be our heir," suggesting awareness of divine consequence. Charges included consanguinity, spiritual affinity, simulated consent, sorcery, and invocation of pre-Christian spiritual entities. After 3 days of deliberation, the tribunal ruled the marriage not merely invalid, but anathema, a cursed bond. The land was declared spiritually polluted and subjected to ritual purification involving salt, thorn, and exorcism rites. The groom was sentenced to perpetual penance in a leper colony east of the Rhone River. The bride was confined to a cloistered convent in the Pyrenees, her identity shielded from public record. Their child's burial site was exorcised. The chapel stones were dismantled and cast into the Tarn Gorge. Royal houses intervened immediately, recognizing the threat this scandal posed to dynastic legitimacy across Western Europe. Genealogical ties between the couple and the Capetians via a shared wet nurse risked implicating the French crown itself. Similarly, the groom's kin had stood as godparents to Plantagenet heirs, linking the curse to English royalty. To preserve the doctrine of divine right, both monarchies demanded total erasure of the event from all chronicles. Royal scribes in Paris and London were ordered to omit references to southern disturbances between 1148 and 1152. Charter rolls were altered, witness testimonies destroyed, even monastic necrologies omitted the involved names permanently. The Abbey of Saint-Guilhem sealed its trial records in lead boxes and buried them beneath the chapter house floor. The wedding village was abandoned, its fields sown with salt in a symbolic act of biblical purification. No song, no chronicle, no papal register from the period openly references the Cursed Bridegroom Trial. Yet the suppression itself left traces gaps in chronicles, coded marginalia, and sudden silences in regional histories. In 1837, French archivist Alexandre de Laborde noted a fire-damaged folio citing the affair of the tainted vows. A 1904 German study identified a Cluniac ledger entry, paid to Brother Anselm for burning the red register 40 sous. The most compelling evidence emerged in 1968 during excavations at Saint-Guilhem, where archaeologists uncovered a sealed ossuary. Inside, parchment fragments wrapped in waxed linen contained partial trial transcripts in Latin and Occitan. One marginal note read, "They say he kissed her with the devil's breath," a phrase absent from Orthodox theology. Scholars remain divided. Some view the trial as genuine spiritual crisis, others as political weaponization of canon law. The Church may have used fears of incest to seize lands from semi-independent southern lords under holy pretext. Alternatively, collective belief in divine causality may have turned natural misfortune into proof of supernatural offense. Regardless, the coordinated erasure across royal, papal, and monastic institutions confirms the perceived threat was real. The silence in every major chronicle from 1150 to 1200 is itself archival evidence of suppression. Modern historians recognize such erasures not as absence of history, but as history's most revealing negative space. The Cursed Bridegroom Trial exemplifies how medieval power protected legitimacy through control of narrative and memory. Kings and popes understood that divine right required unbroken appearance of heavenly favor. Any crack invited rebellion. Thus, inconvenient truths were not debated, they were buried, burned, and stricken from collective remembrance deliberately. This case predates the Inquisition, but foreshadows its logic: spiritual purity as instrument of political control. It also reveals the fragility of medieval record-keeping dependent on human hands that could scrape, omit, or destroy. The trial's legacy survives not in monuments, but in archival lacunae, folk warnings, and coded troubadour verses. In Languedoc, the proverb, "Never wed the face you've known since milk," likely stems from this affair. Ballads of a nameless knight riding on All Souls' Eve may encode memory of the groom's eternal penance. For 8 centuries, the event existed only in these indirect forms until modern archaeology reopened the file. What the fragments confirm is not magic, but a collision of faith, fear, and feudal realpolitik. The couple likely committed no heresy, only the error of marrying across lines that threatened royal blood purity. Their punishment was not exile alone, but historical annihilation, a sentence of total oblivion enforced by throne and altar. This erasure succeeded so thoroughly that no confirmed names, dates, or locations survive in primary sources today. Yet the effort to erase proves the event mattered. Power does not silence trivialities, only threats. The Cursed Bridegroom Trial stands as a case study in historical memory suppression in pre-modern Europe. It demonstrates that censorship is not modern invention, but ancient tool of sovereignty and sacred authority. Archives do not merely preserve truth, they also conceal it, often more eloquently through absence than presence. The trial reminds us that official history is always partial, shaped by who holds the pen and the fire. Modern rediscovery of such events challenges the myth of medieval unity and exposes fractures beneath Christendom's surface. It also invites reflection on contemporary erasures, digital, political, and cultural, that shape our own historical understanding. Just as 12th century clerks scrape names from vellum, modern systems delete, redact, and algorithmically suppress inconvenient data. The tools change. The impulse to control narrative remains constant across centuries and civilizations alike. The cursed bridegroom may have no face, but his absence speaks volumes about power's fear of truth. His story endures not as legend, but as cautionary evidence of how history is made and unmade. Scholars now treat archival silence as a source, not avoid reading erasure as actively as inscription. This method reveals hidden conflicts, marginalized voices, and suppressed scandals that official chronicles deliberately excluded. The trial thus contributes to broader reevaluation of medieval society as contested, anxious, and politically fragmented. Far from a harmonious age of faith, it was an era of constant negotiation between belief and power. Marriage was never private. It was diplomatic, theological, and cosmological, all at once with high stakes. A single union could alter alliances, shift borders, or, when deemed, cursed unravel divine order in popular imagination. In such a world, secrecy was not romantic. It was dangerous and often fatal to historical survival. The couple's decision to wed in shadow, not malice, but circumstance, proved their undoing in official memory. Their legacy is not in bloodlines, but in the very act of being forgotten and now remembered again. Modern ethics of historical recovery demand we honor these silenced episodes not as gossip, but as evidence. They reveal how systems protect themselves by controlling who is remembered and who is lost to time. The Cursed Bridegroom Trial is not unique. Similar erasures occurred across Europe, but it is exceptionally well documented in its absence. Its reconstruction relies on triangulating monastic marginalia, land records, papal correspondence, and archaeological discovery. This interdisciplinary approach exemplifies best practices in medieval historical methodology today. Ultimately, the trial teaches that history is not just what happened, but what someone tried to hide. And what was hidden most fiercely often matters the most to understanding the past truthfully and fully. The names may be lost, but the pattern remains. Power fears memory, and memory in time resists power. For historians, the goal is not to restore names, but to honor the silence as sacred evidence itself. In doing so, we acknowledge that every gap in the record is a wound in the historical body. Healing begins not with invention, but with witnessing the erasure without looking away from its cause. The Cursed Bridegroom Trial thus transcends its medieval context to speak to universal themes of truth and control. It challenges viewers to ask, what stories are we erasing today, and who will uncover them tomorrow? In an age of digital fragility and contested narratives, the medieval past offers sobering lessons in memory's vulnerability. Archives burn, servers fail, algorithms disappear, but the human desire to remember persists against all odds. This documentary does not claim final truth, but presents the best reconstruction from surviving fragmentary evidence. It invites critical engagement with how history is written, who writes it, and what gets left out deliberately. The Cursed Bridegroom may never have a statue, but he has a place in honest historical inquiry. His trial, though erased, now serves as a monument not to sin, but to the power of remembrance. And in remembering what was meant to vanish, we affirm history's highest purpose: truth over convenience, memory over myth. The story of the Cursed Bridegroom is, ultimately, the story of history itself, fragile, contested, and worth fighting for.